You may have heard that Final Cut Pro 10 is just iMovie on steroids. Well, that thinking's kind of old. In the next 30 minutes, we'll get you up and editing and show you just how professional this application really is. Download Final Cut Pro 10 using the Mac App Store. When you open it, you'll see 5 main areas: the sidebar and browser, where your media is organized and displayed; the viewer for watching clips; the inspector for making adjustments; and the timeline where you'll put your project together. If you're starting a brand new show, you can close any existing finished libraries and create a library using File, New, Library. Once you name it, the new library is listed in the library sidebar. The library keeps track of all the media, metadata, and the project timelines that you create. Within the library are events for organizing the different categories of imported media. You can create as many events as you need to organize items the way you want. Just like libraries, events can be renamed by clicking on them. For instance, you might rename an event to be the scene number you're working on. You can import media into an event by clicking the Import button in the toolbar. In the Media Import window, the left side is used to navigate to a hard drive or camera card reader. The media is displayed under the viewer. Selecting a clip loads it into the viewer, where it can be previewed before adding it to the library. The right side of the window contains options to be configured. The first option determines if the media will go into an existing event or a new event that you can create. Next, decide whether you want to copy the source media files into the library or just link to the media wherever it happens to be stored. If you're not all that good at organizing media in the Finder, you might want to stick with Copy to Library, which is the default. This way, there's one library file in the Finder which contains all of the media you're using. Just make sure the library is saved to a fast hard drive for playback. If the original source media is already on a drive that's fast enough for playback and is going to stay connected to your system throughout the edit, you can choose Leave Files in Place. If you decide at a later time that you want to move all the media into the library, possibly as an easy way to back up the entire project, you can consolidate the media into the library at any time. When working with high-resolution digital film files like those from a Blackmagic Design Ursa camera or a Red camera, you can create optimized ProRes 422 media for better playback while still retaining high quality for finishing. Or, to create even smaller files with better performance for working on MacBook Pro laptops or using slow disk drives, you can create ProRes proxy files. Once you create these files, you can switch back and forth at any time while working in Final Cut Pro 10. A unique feature in Final Cut Pro 10 is the ability to analyze media as a way to automatically add metadata about the clips and fix small problems. You can choose to enable any of the analysis to occur during import, or if you're in a rush, save it for a later time. You can analyze clips for incorrect white balance, to identify clips with people in them, fix audio hum and clicks, to separate mono or group stereo audio, remove silent audio channels, as well as a few other options. Once you're ready with the options, you can import all the clips, or just the selected ones by clicking the Import button. After the import's complete, the clips appear in the event. You can view the progress of any transcoding and analysis that's occurring by clicking the Background Task button in the toolbar. If you have more media to import, you can, of course, add as many events as you like. Here, we'll add an event for audio and import some audio files. To create a new event, just choose File, New, Event. Then name the event. If you want to drag clips in from the Finder, first open the Preferences pane and choose the options you want using the Import preferences. Now, instead of using the Import Media window, you can drag files directly into an event from the Finder. Now that we have our media imported, let's look at events a little closer. By default, the selected events clips are displayed in the browser in FilmStrip view. clicking the Clip Appearance button, you can customize how they're displayed. Clicking the List View button switches the browser to display the clips as a list with columns of file information. Selecting the clip displays a film strip at the top of the browser so you can skim visually through the clip. List View can be customized by right-clicking over a column header to choose which columns to show and hide. You can also rearrange columns by dragging them, or sort the clips based on a column by clicking its header. We'll stick to film strip view for the rest of this guide. Hovering your mouse pointer over any thumbnail and moving back and forth will skim through the clip in the viewer. Pressing spacebar will play and stop the clip. The arrow keys on the keyboard will move one frame backward or forward. Now, while you view source content, Final Cut Pro gives you additional layers of organization that you can apply. You can rate clips, add keywords, and assign roles to clips. These organization tools can help you find specific clips much easier during your edit. Let's first take a look at rating clips. While playing or skimming over clips, you can mark the ranges that you may want to use. Click where the range should begin and drag across the clip until you're at the point where you want to stop. With the range selected, press the F key to rate it as a favorite section. A green line appears at the top of the thumbnail. Alternatively, if you come across a range that you'll most likely never use, like out-of-focus shots or takes where the actors make mistakes, you can make the selection and press Delete to rate that range as rejected. The rejected section will be hidden in the event. Now, to see the rejected ranges, you can choose Rejected from the filter pop-up, or set it back to Hide Rejected so the event only shows clips that are not yet rated along with your favorites. Keywords are another way to add helpful information to ranges within clips. You can assign keywords by again selecting a range in the clip and then clicking the Keyword Editor button above the browser. After entering the keyword and closing the keyword editor, a blue line appears at the top of the thumbnail indicating a keyword has been added. Maybe more importantly, a keyword collection is created under the event. Keyword collections automatically display all the clips that contain that keyword. Dragging clips into the keyword collection is another way to add the keyword to a clip. Or in the keyword editor, you can add keyboard shortcuts for up to 10 keywords. Final Cut Pro also allows you to assign roles to clips by right-clicking over the clip and choosing a video or audio role from the submenu. Video roles include video or titles, while audio roles include dialogue, sound effects, or music. You can also create your own roles for other content type like visual effects, graphics, or voiceover narration. To assign a role to multiple clips, you can select the clips in the browser and in the inspector, click the Info button. In the Info Inspector, select the video or audio role that you want to assign to all the selected clips. With so much metadata available, Final Cut Pro includes simple, automatic ways to take advantage of it all. Smart collections are automatically created in every project based on metadata or the analysis you perform on clips. Clicking the Smart Collection Disclosure arrow reveals the current smart collections for the entire library. Here, there's already a smart collection that shows all of your favorites from every event in the current library. You can also locate the clips based on any piece of metadata by creating your own smart collection under the File menu. Double-clicking the Smart Collection brings up the filter window, and here you can choose the criteria that determine which clips are added into the Smart Collection. For instance, we'll add criteria that finds all the clips with the role assigned as sound effects. When you're ready to begin putting a project together, you may want to customize the layout. For instance, we don't want the inspector open, and we may want two viewers, one for our source clips and one for the project we're editing together. Once you're happy, you can choose Window, Workspaces, Save Workspace As to save the custom layout. Okay, time to edit. Skimming over a thumbnail displays in the event viewer on the left. To choose a range within the clip to use in the project, set in and out points. Just skim over the thumbnail, press I to set the in point, O to set the out point. Now, we need to make a timeline, or a project as it's known in Final Cut Pro. First, we'll create an event from the File menu. This will contain all of our rough cut projects. Then again from the File menu, we'll choose New, Project, and give it a name. Now we're ready to make our first edit. To add the clip into your timeline, just drag it in. The range you selected earlier is the portion of the clip that gets added. The timeline uses both a skimmer, which allows you to quickly slide over the area you want to view, or the playhead, which explicitly sets and stays on a location in the timeline. The skimmer follows your mouse, and if it's located within the timeline, it takes priority over the playhead. For instance, if you want to play from the start of your timeline, skim to the beginning and press the spacebar to play. If you want to begin playing from the playhead's location, move the skimmer out of the timeline and press the spacebar.
Answer the question, Chewbacca. Come on.
Let's add the next shot. Here, we want to drop in the reverse angle close-up as the book gets taken from our hero's hands. We'll position the playhead where we want the new clip added. Then find the in point in the reverse angle, pressing the I key to mark it. This time, we'll use the toolbar edit buttons to overwrite the clip, or use the keyboard shortcut for overwrite, which is the D key. Skim to the beginning of the timeline, or press function key left arrow to jump there. Then, press spacebar to play the timeline.
Oh, how cute. Cinder wishes she was a Cinderella.
So, Cinder, are you going to the party?
Guess who'll be there?
We end up with two problems when we play back. Firstly, the audio is overwritten as well as the video. We want to continue to hear the sound from the original clip and only see the cutaway shot, not hear its audio. Secondly, the newly added shot almost completely overwrites the tail end of the original clip. We want to cut back earlier to the main action. Let's undo our edit by pressing Command-Z. By default, Final Cut Pro combines audio and video clips into a single segment in the timeline. This makes it a lot easier to move them around and keep things in sync. But to overwrite just the video, we need to detach the two. Right-click over this segment in the timeline and choose Detach Audio from the menu. Now, with both audio and video being placed separately in the timeline, we can overwrite just the video. From the Edit pop-up in the toolbar, select Video Only. We're all set to mark the edit. We just need to look at the second problem, the fact that our new clip overwrote the entire length of the existing timeline. Now, we already know where we want to add the new shot, right here where the book begins to be pulled. Instead of using the playhead, we'll press I to set an in point in the timeline. Now we want to be back on the wide after the girl says, "How cute."
Oh, how cute.
So we'll move there and press O to set an out point for our edit. Now we'll clear the selected range we marked on the source using the Mark menu. Then just skim to the location on the source clip where we want to start and press the D key to overwrite. This is called a 3-point edit, the 3 points being the in and out point we set in the timeline and the single point we skim to in the event viewer. Now we have just the right amount of reverse shot to cover the marked range between the timeline in and out points we set.
She was a Cinderella.
Notice too that because we selected video only from the toolbar pop-up, none of the reverse shots audio is added, and we have an uninterrupted soundtrack from the original master shot. We'll go ahead and select all from that pop-up for our next edit. You can continue to build a project by drag and drop or overwriting clips in the timeline, but at some point you'll need to place a shot in between two others.
Girls, I think it's time to teach someone a little lesson.
Here, we need to add a continuation of the action that ties these two shots together. So we'll first position the playhead between the two shots. You can enable snapping by clicking this button. Now, when dragging the playhead, it'll snap to the edit point. Select a range in the source clip for the portion you want to add. To perform the edit, we'll use the Insert Edit button, which is W on the keyboard. The timeline separates to make room for the inserted clip. Once your timeline starts to grow, you can navigate between edit points by pressing the up and down arrow keys. To view the entire timeline, press Shift-Z. To zoom in tight on the skimmer, press Command+. If the skimmer is not in the timeline, Command+ will zoom into the playhead. When you're zoomed in, you can pan around the timeline using the scroll bar at the bottom of the panel. And to zoom out again, press Command-. Now here's a really nice way to jump to specific edits in your timeline. Click the Index button in the upper left of the timeline panel. The index includes every edit made in the current timeline. Clicking on an entry will move the playhead to that edit point. By the way, if you're coming to Final Cut Pro from another NLE, you can customize the keyboard shortcuts so they're more familiar to you. Just go to Final Cut Pro, Commands, Customize. Then choose Duplicate from the menu in the top left and give your new keyboard settings a name. And just start dragging commands to keyboard buttons. Okay, back to editing more clips into our timeline. We've already added one B-roll shot using the overwrite edit. Some editors, however, prefer to stack clips rather than overwrite them. The visual result is the same, but the process is a little different. You stack a clip on top of another by clicking the Connect to Storyline Edit button. Video on the highest track will be shown in the final edit.
You know, that's too bad. I happen to know for a fact Max likes Cinderellas.
And you're more like Cinderella's old, ugly pumpkin.
If you want to temporarily look at a video hidden below the highest track, right-click over the segment and choose Disable. Then when you're done, just select the disabled segment and press the keyboard shortcut V to enable it. This seems like a good spot to pause and talk about the Final Cut Pro magnetic timeline. The magnetic timeline reacts much differently than any other editing timeline. It protects you from easily breaking the sync of clips, as well as connected titles, sound effects, and cutaways like the one we have here. The main track, which clips added onto, is called the primary storyline. All the clips within the primary storyline want to stay stuck together. When dragging a clip, the vertical blue line indicates where the clip will insert. There's no override option when dragging in the timeline. You can see the other clips shift to make room automatically. This inability to create gaps in your timeline may seem limiting at first, but it allows clips to move and stay in sync. You're not overwriting or deleting anything, but it allows you to rearrange clips without worry. Audio and video clips cut above or below the primary storyline, like this B-roll cutaway, are connected to the shot below in the primary storyline. Moving the primary shot in the timeline moves the connected B-roll clip with it, so they maintain their sync relationship. This linked behavior of the primary storyline and the connected clips is perfect for B-roll, sound effects, titles, and other layered shots. Even pressing the delete key will remove a clip but close up the gap. You can, however, add gaps when necessary. For instance, pressing Shift-Delete adds a gap clip in its place. This gap clip can be selected and moved just like any other clip. You can also add a gap clip between clips by choosing Edit, Insert Generator, Gap. A 3-second gap clip is added to the timeline, which of course you can make longer and shorter as needed. Once you have a rough assembly, you won't need to delete or move clips around as much as you will need to refine how they start and end. If you position the mouse pointer just to the left or right of the edit point, you'll get a single-sided trim icon. When on the left, you're trimming just the out point of the previous clip. Dragging left will shorten the clip, while dragging right will extend it. In either case, the end point of the next incoming clip remains the same. While trimming, the viewer displays two images, the end frame of the previous clip on the left and the end frame of the next incoming clip on the right. This helps to match the action between the two clips. You can position the pointer on the right side of the edit point and trim the end point of the next incoming clip so it better matches the action. You'll also see a frame counter in the timeline indicating duration of the clip and how many frames you've trimmed from its original position. These are ripple trims because they ripple the remaining clips in the timeline, pushing them and pulling them in the timeline so there's no gap. Pressing Shift ? Will play around the playhead so you can see your trim results. One of the fastest ways to remove frames is just to position the playhead where you want the clip to start or end, and then choose Trim Start or Trim End from the trim menu. Keep in mind, if you use the keyboard shortcuts, then the trim function will go to the skimmer if the mouse pointer is over a clip in the timeline. Otherwise, it will trim to the playhead. You can also select the Trim tool from the Toolbar Edit pop-up menu. Using the Trim tool, you can hover the mouse over the center of an edit point to get a roll trim cursor. Click and drag left or right, and Final Cut Pro will move both the out point of the previous clips and the in point of the next incoming clip simultaneously, effectively shifting the edit point without changing the overall duration of the project. The Trim tool also lets you slip and slide clips. Moving the mouse into the center of the clip changes the cursor to a slip cursor. Dragging the clip left shifts the range you edited in the timeline to a later time in the source clip without changing the duration or position of the edit. Dragging right shifts the range earlier. The viewer shows you the new start and end points of the clip while you're slipping. Holding the Option key changes the function to a slide trim. Sliding is almost the very opposite of slipping. It keeps the clip the same while moving its position along the timeline. If you want to trim just the audio or the video of a clip, you need to first right-click over the clip and choose Expand Audio. Now, you're able to view both the audio and video components of the clip. You can trim audio independently of the video in order to create J or L cuts. Take a bit of time to experiment with all the different ways to trim. They'll make a lot more sense once you've used them a few times. Now, before we wrap with trimming, you may be wondering where your Add Edit tool is, like the one you'll find in Avid's Media Composer. It's called the Blade tool, and selecting it from the tool menu will allow you to click the skimmer on a segment to create an edit point. Just remember to return to the selection tool so you don't accidentally start creating edit points all over your timeline. And that's it for the basic trimming tools. There are a whole bunch more advanced editing techniques: dynamic JKL trim, keyboard trimming, extend edit, the list goes on. But you now know enough to start chopping up and finessing your clips in the Final Cut Pro timeline. Audio is one of the most important things to get right in any film or video project. Let's take a look at working with audio in Final Cut Pro. Similar to events, you can change the appearance using this button in the timeline. Customizing the look of the timeline can make it easier for working with audio. For instance, here you can resize the audio elements to see the waveforms more clearly. You can solo any audio segment by selecting the segment and clicking the solo button here. Conversely, you can mute an audio segment the same way you did the B-roll cutaway by right-clicking over it and choosing Disable. Now, as you've seen, audio, as part of a video clip, appears in the timeline within the same segment as its video. These audio elements have the same blue color as the video. This music soundtrack has a green color, and the sound effects here have a red color. These colors are based on the roles you set earlier. Let's add another sound effect into the timeline. It connects to the primary video track just like the B-roll cutaway we made earlier. You can see how it automatically has the red color since it has the sound effects role assigned to it. Because of Final Cut's magnetic timeline, these audio segments keep their relationship to the primary storyline even when you pick up and move the video segment. Now, the most common audio task you'll be performing is adjusting the levels of your different audio tracks. Click the Inspector button and then click the Audio tab at the top of the inspector. The Audio Inspector has a slide to adjust the volume of the selected audio segment. If the audio you're adjusting is the primary audio in your soundtrack, you can increase the volume until you begin to see yellow on the tips of the waveform. This indicates that you're approaching peak levels. You don't want to hit peak, indicated by red highlights. This can cause distortion in your audio clip, so keep it in the yellow. You can also click the Audio Meters button under the viewer to display the audio meters. Now when you play the timeline, you'll see the meters and you can inspect the levels a bit closer. Clicking the Mode pop-up menu for pan allows you to select the pan mode, in this case simple stereo panning. You can now move the pan slider to determine where it sits in a stereo mix. The volume line on each audio segment is another way you can adjust the level for that clip. However, you can also use it to change the volume level within a clip. You start by selecting the Range tool in the toolbar. Drag around the section where you want to raise or lower the volume. Now, just move the volume line to your desired level.
Oh, how cute.
There are a lot more advanced audio features, including surround sound support and equalization. But something you will do on every project is to quickly add a cross dissolve. Select an edit point as if you're going to trim it. Now press Command-T or choose add cross dissolve from the Edit menu. You can do the same on video tracks as well. To make modifications, just select the transition and open the inspector. All other transitions and effect options can be found by clicking the Transition Browser button or the Effects Browser button. Selecting a segment in the timeline and skimming over an effect thumbnail shows a preview of the effect on the selected clip. Dragging the thumbnail onto a segment adds it to the timeline. With all of your editing, audio, and effects completed, let's go over how you can get a project into a movie format for posting on a website, as well as other formats of distribution. From the File menu, choose either Share, or for more advanced custom settings, you can choose Send to Compressor. The Share menu includes a few basic preset options. However, you can also create other output presets here as well. In the Destination List settings, drag the setting you want to start with into the sidebar. Here you can modify the parameters to create the exact movie file you want. And once you're done, the new setting shows in the Share menu. Selecting any preset from the Share menu opens a preview window. Here you can make last-minute changes to your output, view some statistics about the file that will be created, and finally, choose the file name and save location. During the export process, you can view the progress using the Background Task menu. One final parting bit of wisdom. Final Cut Pro is a unique application and can be frustrating to learn because it throws a lot of accepted conventions for editing out the window. But take your time, and remember, the Help file located under the Help menu can usually answer a lot of simple questions.